Now, I got a question on a scale of 1 to 10, and for those of you downstairs, how real can I get? How real can I go? 1 being, stay surface level, 10 being, go to the bottom of the ocean.
10.
27. Okay. So as I was sitting back there, I was sitting there thinking to myself, what is the most important thing I could share with the youth downstairs? But I'm not only talking to the youth downstairs. I'm also talking to the youth in the room. Because a lot of you are older and you're much wiser. But there's something going on deep down that I want to address. And I'm not going to pull any punches. There is nothing wrong with you. Absolutely nothing. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because I recently read a statistic that said 90 to 95% of people feel some sense of inadequacy. And it's complete BS. Because whatever sense of inadequacy you feel is driven by a story. And a story you told yourself when you were too young to understand what was happening. So when we walk into these rooms, I've literally walked into rehabs because families hired me like a mercenary. And I walked into a rehab in Mexico and walked out with these people's son who had a fentanyl addiction for 17 years, 3 days later. And he's still sober, he's doing hair again, and he's best friends with his mom. And they said, what did you do in 3 days? I said, I reminded him of who he was because he forgot. The addiction is not the problem. Forgetting who you are is the problem. The statistics shared earlier by my friend Lisa, we all know is true. And the challenge is we try to solve those problems. And one thing I love listening to Lisa about is there's no problem to solve. You are enough. You were born enough. How many of you got kids? Show me an incomplete child. Show me a child with a sense of inadequacy. I was recently putting my daughter to sleep. She's 15 months. And I was holding her and staring at her in her eyes. And as I was staring at her, you want to know what was staring at me back? Nothing. Just pure being. Just pure isness. The essence of who you really are. See, the first 2 words you use to describe yourself is always I am. But then we start adding things to that. And the things you add to I am becomes your identity and your limitation. Because the truth is, you don't have potential, you are potential. When I said I was staring into nothing, what I was staring into was potential itself. Because from that space where there's no sense of identity and there's just pure being, anything is possible. Yes or yes? But then when does impossible start to become, well, is it possible? It's when you start telling a story. See, right now, her name is Kaya. Her name's always going to be Kaya, not just right now. But I'm riffing. Her name is Kaya, and we call her that, and she'll respond to it sometimes. But at some point, she's going to look in the mirror and she's going to say, I am Kaya. And as the great Dr. Miles Monroe once put it, he says, every human being asks themselves the same 5 questions their entire life. Who am I? Why am I here? Where am I going? What can I do? And where am I from? And that's when she will begin to justify her existence. She will begin to ask herself questions like, do I matter? And how can I make my life matter? Well, see, here's the problem with that question. The premise. The idea that you even have to justify your existence in the first place. And so when the story of I am Kaya begins to form, when she can consciously experience memories and situations, she's going to start asking herself questions like, well, what does this mean? But not what does it mean about everything else? What does this mean about me? Dad didn't come to my soccer game today. What does that mean about me? Dad always comes home, or mom always comes home at 11 o'clock, and she's never available on weekends. What does that mean about me? Mom and dad say they're building all this for us, but I just want their time. So they don't want to spend time with me. What does that mean about me? And now the story begins. And she starts to build up a narrative in her head that she thinks she has to overcome. When the truth is, it was just a story. She's always going to be enough. She's never not going to be enough. And it's also a reason why the great Jesus said, until you become like this little child again, you will never experience the kingdom. A place of pure peace beyond all understanding. When you no longer have to wonder why you matter or why you were born. Because I've met so many people at different levels who have life remorse or life's guilt. Why am I alive and somebody else is not? Why am I here and someone else is not? Out of all the 600 million sperm that made it through, why was it me? What if the answer simply was, because you did? And that's it. What would be possible if you weren't building from a place of inadequacy, but you were building from a place of wholeness? What would be possible? What could you contribute? If you built from a place of, I'm already enough. Now, what do I want to give from here? Versus who do I need to be to matter? Because you already matter. Even if you just sat at home on the couch and did absolutely nothing, you're already enough and you still matter. No one can give it to you and no one can take it away. That's why no matter of success can fill that hole. Because there is no hole to fill. But one thing I notice for my young people downstairs is that that's too simple of an idea. What do you mean there's no hole to fill? Because sometimes people need something to be wrong with them just to give them a reason to get out of bed in the morning, give them something to fix. So I want you to understand a couple of things. Number one, young people, before you go out into the world trying to figure out if you matter, I want you to do 3 things. First of all, I want you to challenge everything you believe is true about you. Because imagine walking into a courtroom and the judge is 8 years old, the jury is 8 years old, the prosecutor is 8 years old, the eyewitness is 8 years old, and there's no defense attorney, no cross-examinations allowed, and you're the one on trial. How fair of a trial would that be? And so on any level, if you feel any sense of inadequacy downstairs or in this room, it's simply because you convicted yourself, judge, jury, executioner, as to why you're not good enough, why you're not worthy, why you're not deserving, solely based on the eyewitness testimony of a child. That will never hold up in court. Number 2, self-image is what controls your performance. And self-image is not what I think of me. It's not what you think of me. It's what I think you think of me. I remember the first time I walked into a room like this. I was wearing a shiny black suit, and it wasn't Armani. I just ironed the shit too much because I didn't know you weren't supposed to iron a suit. And I walked into the room, and everybody was white. Now, my grandma grew up in Arkansas. And she told me everybody that ain't black is white. And they don't like you. So I walked into the room and immediately felt uncomfortable. I started looking around and all I can hear is, look at this thing. He don't belong here. He probably don't even have a real business. Who let him in the room? He probably here to rob somebody. And after about 20 minutes of hearing the most disgusting things, I left, got in my car, turned on a motivational mixtape, and went home. And when my friend said, how was the event? I said, them people racist as hell. And I remember signing up to work with Bob Proctor, the late Bob Proctor. And the first thing he taught me was about self-image. And he said that term, self-image is not what I think of me, it's not what you think of me, it's what I think you think of me. And I immediately realized, oh my God. Because I never talked to any of those people. That entire conversation was going on in my head. How many of you have walked into a room and immediately thought people was talking crap about you? And the whole thing was narrating in your head. And the only difference between you and the guy on the corner at QT who's yelling at the air is that he's arguing with himself out loud and you argue with yourself in your head. You just as crazy as that mother. Because I realized at that moment, what I thought they thought about me was really what I thought about me, and I was blaming it on them. But the only reason why I ever thought something was wrong with me was because of a story. So I want you to understand, as you mentor with these amazing people, making money is not a superpower. And I used to think that because I grew up poor. And being in this room helped me realize that making money is a skill. So you'll learn that. But you could also be rich and miserable. So when you get with your mentors, I don't want you to just ask about business. I want you to ask them directly to their face, who are you? Because when you know who you are, you can show me how to just be authentically me. Thank you.
Thank you.